This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Okta and Carasoft. The Air Force will look for a new Chief Information Officer as their current CIO closes out her career in government. Venus Goodwine's last day as DAF CIO was this past Friday. At AFCEA's TechNet Cyber in Baltimore this week, I asked her what's different about her service's IT operations since she became CIO almost 2 years ago.
I have implemented zero trust. The DoD CIO required that the services, thrive to meet what we call targeted level by 2027. My zero trust team is well on their way to do that. What's also different is now we have executed our enterprise IT as a service, which includes wave one, which was our enterprise services, which is our help desk for the Department of the Air Force. And we're now moving into the modernization of our bases and our installations. So our base infrastructure modernization is happening. What also is different, my CDAO, my Chief Data and Analytics Officer, we are now establishing a AI Center of Excellence. And so that is going to be key to the department as we look at the entire continuum of artificial intelligence from not only the productivity piece, but also if you think AI-enabled autonomy and how do you do that in a responsible manner. And definitely the last piece is it's all about the data. And so data on demand is now the key initiative that we have that we did not have when I started, because it's being able to make informed decisions at the right time, at the right speed with trusted data is important. So establishing what we consider our data catalog, whereby we can tag our data and know what data is needed to make decisions, that's going to be key. So those are the four major things that I think is different now than it was when I started the role.
And it's interesting because a couple of those have been driven by the landscape, by the national security landscape, and a couple of them have been driven by technology accelerations. And then there are some that are a combination of both. Is it a fair read on my part?
Yes, it is. Definitely the landscape. If you think about, if we're going to project power as the Department of the Air Force, Air and Space Force, we need to have the ability to do that from any installation. And you can do that when you have modernized infrastructure, not just most people think critical infrastructure is just the water and the fuel, but also having great transport that is modernized as well, secure and resilient. Communications path is important. So, and the other thing is data. Because data, again, is one of those things where we're a data-rich environment. From every sensor, it creates data. So all that telemetry, how do you use, and we'll talk about automation to really go through that data to make sense and act. So both of those things, I think, are really the landscape has changed. And then you also know from a cybersecurity perspective, even though I say I didn't mention that as one of the top fours, but definitely in the cybersecurity landscape, we have definitely modernized in that way. How do we automate, the risk management process, or how do we look at cybersecurity writ large for the organization through not only our workforce being trained and ready and skilled, but also making sure that we can make decisions faster in that cybersecurity space.
Yeah, the cyber discussions that are happening here are interesting to me because the terminology is changing, it's evolving, I think, and zero trust and cybersecurity in the department have almost become synonymous, even though they're not exactly the same thing.
And that's true, because what zero trust allows us to do really, and this, is to allow our airmen and guardians, our warfighters, to be able to have access from anywhere, regardless of the device they're on, regardless of the network they use, because we're securing it at the data layer and the application layer. And that is critical and a huge shift in culture for how we do business. But our current investment strategy is focused on that, because it doesn't matter whether it's one of my aircraft or if it's one of my networks, I still have to make sure that I secure it at the right level.
Well, and the investment word that you just used is important too, because one of the things that I've seen both with your predecessor, Lauren Knausenberger, and now with you is when you come into an event like this and talk about your priorities, they match up to what's in the budgets that the service is asking for. That's not always historically been the case. I'm not picking on the Air Force. It's been all across DoD.
No, absolutely. I just spoke about that today on the panel. It is important that every dollar we spend, that I understand the return and investment, but I also understand that it is aligned to the strategic objectives, not only of the Department of the Air Force, but of the Secretary of Defense. His focus is lethality, readiness, and efficiency. We've always talked about being more efficient, but now we need to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, if you allow me to use that, because I have to know every dollar that I spend. How did I make that decision across the enterprise, not just in a silo of enterprise capabilities, but in the enterprise as of the department?
You mentioned automation, and among those four things that you laid out, zero trust, the base infrastructure modernization, the AI center of excellence, and data, where are you using automation now, and what are the opportunities for your successor to drive automation into those areas?
I think the biggest key is going to be to use AI as an automation technology for everything else. Meaning that when I receive sensor data from my base infrastructure and understanding the posture of a base, I can have AI to look at that data. I can use AI on that data. When I think about cybersecurity and the risk management framework, I can use AI to comb through the sense of that data as well. If you know, a couple of weeks ago, our Katie Arrington talked about blowing up RMF, and we all got together in the room, and I applaud her for that bold action. And you'll know that we all have already started doing that, but now she's holding us to task. And what that really means when we say blow up RMF through this SWIFT process is automation. How do I automate the risk decision? But then how do I continuously monitor that risk decision that I've made to ensure that the countermeasures that I've applied are appropriate for the threat?
When someone leaves service, as you are doing, there inevitably are things that you wish you could have stayed around to see to completion, I'm sure. What are those, and what will you track from the outside, I guess, to see how your team continues to kind of carry the torch?
That's a good question. Two things. I'm going to continue to track the base infrastructure modernization. You know, when you think about the 180 plus installations that the Air Force has, and that where we want the Air Force and the Space Force, where we want to actually project power, I want to see that they have been modernized, but not in a cookie cutter spread type of way, but no kidding that the modernization fits the mission of the installation. So I'll be watching to see that project continues. I'll watch to see if the AI Center of Excellence actually produces the intended results, meaning that, yes, I can have this entire continuum, but mostly that I've actually developed a workforce that understands how to use and leverage AI across all of our mission sets. Those are the two things I will watch from the outside in.
What do you think the key is to be able to equip that workforce to do what you just suggested, and then measure to know that they are doing what we hope that they would do?
Two things: innovation and empowerment. I have always tried to create a culture of innovation in the Department of the Air Force, meaning I knew that we definitely have what we called a new technology or a data-centric workforce. And so in order to do that, I had to create a space for them in order to have this creativity or this innovation or even this curiosity. So we created the Innovation Landing Zone in the Department of the Air Force for that reason. And out of that have come some warfighter capabilities. You know, we have one of our radio mesh networks that was a result of the Innovation Landing Zone. But the other thing that goes with innovation is empowerment, is empowering the organization, the airmen and the guardians, to be able to say, yes, that works. No, that doesn't. Yes, we should start. No, we should stop. And really empowering them for those to make those types of decisions is going to be new, because every decision is not going to raise to the level of the Pentagon. But we want to be able to give good, strong guidance to the force around information technology so that they'll know how to make those decisions that are within their authority.
We just have a minute or so left. My last question is a personal one, and I think it's been 5 or 6 years that this happened. You were still at the Agriculture Department. We did an event at the National Press Club, and afterwards I said, so what do you want to do next? And you said, I want to be a CIO. Now you've been a CIO. Is it everything you imagined that it would be?
Absolutely. And you know why I can say that? People. I mean people. The Office of the CIO that I've had the pleasure of working with have been stellar. They have accepted every challenge that I've given them. And so every time I accept an award, I say, I accept this award on behalf of the Office of the CIO team. The other thing with people is my coordination with my counterparts and my coordination with industry. That type of collaboration has made this job everything that I thought it would be. It's not easy, but it was fun.